welcome to this special broadcast. I have with me Mr. Abhijit Roy. He is the CEO and MD of Berger Paints. Thank you very much for speaking to Republic. I'd firstly want to begin by asking you, what does India Inc. want from the Union Budget 2024?
The first thing that India Inc. possibly, and at least in the consumer sector, what they would look forward to is an increase in demand for our goods and services that we are providing in the marketplace. So demand pull is required, and for that I think more money in the hands of consumers is what is required.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And also to add to that, what steps, according to you, must be taken to revive private capex, because that continues to remain a key concern?
So private capex is dependent on the demand scenario. If the demand goes up, obviously, when your capacity is being fully utilized, you will go and invest in more, factories possibly, and therefore the private capex will tend to go up. That can only happen when the demand scenario is buoyant, and that is why I said, the requirement today, and the tax is quite buoyant. If you look at the GST figures or the income tax figures, it has been quite robust as far as the government is concerned, and it is having good income in its hands. Therefore, now the time has come to loosen the purse strings a little bit, possibly give some impetus to, the middle income category and the lower middle income category as well. They need to be given, some degree of freedom, or, money has to be in their hands to spend on consumer items. That will push up demand. That will produce a virtuous cycle, because the demand goes up automatically, your capacity gets used up, and then you tend to go and invest in new factories, new jobs. So that becomes a virtuous cycle, and for that to kick in, we need to push demand a little bit.
And what are your demands with regard to the allocation for the housing and construction sectors, because that in turn will have an impact on the paint industry?
Sure, and so I presume that this activity of Prime Minister Awas Yojana will continue, and in fact the budget, we would expect that greater allocation will be done on that. There is a dearth of housing for most, especially in the urban centers. We would also look forward to, because the smart city projects did not or did they did some initiative, took some initiative on this, but it didn't succeed so much as some of the other projects did. So possibly they need to relook at how to drive this further in the urban centers. More need for housing, possibly affordable housing. There was a tax break which was provided. Maybe that needs to be continued or enhanced a little bit, maybe, in order to increase the usage of, in the middle class, has to be given some sort of an, I would say, incentive to go and, start buying houses as well, or flats for themselves in the urban centers. And for that, sort of a tax break might help.
And with the increased emphasis on sustainability and green initiatives in this budget, how is it that Berger Paints is planning to adapt its product offerings?
So it's very important, because greening of the world is happening. That's a trend which is likely to continue in the future. We have taken many initiatives, from our side, in order to, go along with the government or the world at large, because the direction is very clear. More use of water-based products, basically, rather than solvent-based products, which depends on oil inputs. Also, the part that we use in our factories today, much of the power is getting generated through the solar power route. Alternative routes are also being explored, like wind, etc. There is a lot of effort on the sustainability side also. Reprocessing or recycling the plastics, to be used, again in our containers, which are mostly either plastic or tin, but tin is anyway reprocessed, mostly. The plastic also is now getting reprocessed in large quantities. The waste material, utilizing those for, productive purpose is what is, another trend which is very strongly being done, and we are also looking at it. Some of the initiatives that we have taken is going to help us in that direction.
And also a quick word on the macro picture, Mr. Roy. What, according to you, is a perfect union budget that you are expecting?
So as I said, if you look at the macro picture, it is quite strong. Deficit is, I presume, they will peg it at 5.1%, somewhere around that. The GDP is growing strongly. One of the better performing or the best performing major economies in the world today. The tax is buoyant. What possibly needs to be done, as I indicated earlier, is giving an impetus to the demand, because if you look at the consumer companies, all of them have been voicing this, that there is a slowdown in the demand per se. The GDP growth is now being propelled by the investment GDP, which is primarily the infrastructure investment being done by the government. But the consumption GDP is at a lower level. It's only at around 4% versus 10% of investment GDP, and therefore the average is coming to around 7.5, 8. If the consumption GDP also increases, we can start growing at a much faster pace, and that will also improve the private capex investment also. So, in my opinion, demand needs to be pushed, and for that, money has to be there in the hands of consumers. Possibly in the rural areas, they need to spend more money, giving it to farmers. It is good economics and good politics. So probably both will be, done this budget, I think.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you for speaking to Republic as we await what Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will announce.
Thank you.